Oh, excuse me. Not a great start. Take two. Oh, this is coming off. Take two. All right, everybody, welcome into the Pillow Talk edition, the second of two streams that I, Pugs Moran, do here. I do one. It starts at noon every day. It's called High Noon. It comes on, noon every day, Central Standard Time. That's Monday through Friday. Then I double back, and I need to bring in, I need to go to the bullpen. I need to bring in a reliever. And that's when I partner every night at 9 o'clock on a little show that he and I like to call Pugs and Parker. Let's bring him in. It's Parker. There he is. Look at him. Hi, John. John's in the chat room. Just John. All right. There we are.
It's early. There will be more.
How are you today, Parker? How are you?
Every day is a little bit better. Still struggling in the aftermath of losing my friend, but I know she wouldn't want me to just dwell on it forever and be a sad sack. So after, the period of grieving and mourning is still happening, but it's phasing out slowly. And I'm almost ready to be in sort of that celebratory, I don't want to say party mode, but sort of celebration of life. Like where if the name comes up, then it'll bring a smile to my face again. Yeah.
Be Irish. Have you ever been to a real Irish wake?
No.
It's what they are. They people. I mean, the first time I went to a real wake, like a non-Irish Catholic wake, I was like, oh, okay, this kind of ain't the same thing. I mean, I would say that 90% of the wakes that I attend, everybody's drunk, or at least the ones I did growing up. There's always a bar car. Do you know what a bar car is? There's always a car in the parking lot with a trunk that's open that's just filled with ice, and there are people in their fancy funeral suits just tailgating, telling stories and laughing. And if you're the if you're the person that's going into the ground and you were the kind of person that got ripped on in life by your buddies are going to rip you apart right there one last time just for old time's sake. No, it's really, it's culturally very Irish that they celebrate the passing. They do not get all, because nobody likes a bad drunk, and the Irish are always drunk. So they get really drunk and then they choose to be happy and they dance and sing and celebrate. It's a party.
Oh, yeah. These generalized stereotypes are so offensive when you talk about an entire group of negative people have a negative comment. Yeah, whatever.
Well,
I hear you, dude.
I'm just talking about my culture and my experiences growing up.
It sounds like that would be preferable for me because I don't handle this very well, like just emotionally speaking. This isn't my bag. This isn't what I'm good at.
Don't they do good funerals in New Orleans too? Don't they do like the where they're all like dancing down the streets and stuff? That sounds good. That's the way you got to send somebody on to the next, not with a bunch of pearl clutching and crying and black attire.
Not everybody does that, but the people of higher status, and by higher status, I don't mean rich people. I mean, like even in the poor communities, if it's like the patriarch of a family or the matriarch of a family, sure. They're called jazz funerals, and the people going out in the street are called the second line. But the brass band is the ones actually making the noise, and then the family dances in line with the band or in front of it. All the other people are what's called the second line, and it's the rest of the family
stuff, co-workers, friends, people they drink with. But so there's a pecking order to the lines.
Yeah, and you are allowed to just, if you're walking down the street, you're allowed to jump in on a second line at any part. You're not allowed to jump in on the first part. You can't be up there with the family or whatever, but it's almost encouraged for the neighborhood to just join in, and wherever this thing is going, stop what you're doing and go remember one of your neighbors.
That's how you do it. That's just celebrate life. You celebrate. Hey, look, death is coming for all of us. It came for our friend a little bit quicker than maybe most of us would have liked, but that is a done deal. And now let's just celebrate why we liked them when they were around. That's it.
Right. You hear a lot of references to like a second line, like second line stop or second line, like references in songs and things like that's what a second line is behind the jazz parade. And there's other reasons to have a brass band parade down the street. Like my brother-in-law had one when he got married. They did a brass band, and there was a first line and second line that went behind that. Yeah. So, and did you ever see the Hannibal Buress run out of New Orleans? Because he kind of had an experience that paralleled mine. And I don't know. I feel like it's almost a nice little documentary that a lot of people, if you want to understand where I just lived for 16 years, it's a pretty good rundown because he talks about how, if you want to have a parade anywhere else, you can't just have a parade. But in New Orleans, if you show up with like $300 at City Hall and you mark off like a couple of blocks, they'll get a cop to go stand detail, and you can have parts of the street blocked off in a parade for a parade permit, and they're really easy to get. And so people have them for just light and frivolous causes. Um, Probably more than you would even think. Like you would think, doesn't this get old? Not to them. This is
No, it's part of the New Orleans brand. It's,
so
it's what people
right.
go to
So
see.
look, if it's Mardi Gras, which lasts for 6 weeks, actually 7 weeks of this year, you're going to be parading all the time. When someone gets married, there's a little bit mini parade. When someone has a jazz funeral, there's a little mini parade. Sometimes for big anniversaries, like the 25th wedding anniversary, or there's a parade, and there's a brass band and a second line. And yeah. So Hannibal Buress was shocked about that because not only were the parades that easy, but the fact that you can drink alcohol outside just walking around with an open container changes everything now, because now
Wasn't that always? I thought that was always allowed in New Orleans.
it is always allowed in New Orleans, but that turns the entire city of New Orleans basically into a bar, like an amusement park or like a music festival. You can just walk around freely from place
Yeah.
to place with a beverage. And so it is like an air of amusement. And it's funny because what that rule does is in every other town in America, except for Vegas, New Orleans, and Lafayette is the other town in America where you can walk outside with a beer. That keeps all the parties necessarily inside. And if there's an outdoor party, it would have to be a festival or a block party where you're still restricted. There's a restriction of movement. So you have to be in a place to have a party. But in New Orleans is the whole damn place can be a party. And so Hannibal Buress was shocked because that changes the job of cops now. So you go from wherever you live in America to New Orleans, and not only are you walking outside with a beer or walking outside with a bourbon and Coke, you could be walking outside with a big fat handle of Jack Daniels and just be pounding it right in front of a cop. And it's not illegal, and they don't say anything. And in fact, in the Hannibal Buress bit, he was making drinks, and cops said to him, like, if you were going to have that much, you should have just brought your own bottle. He's like, wow, the cop told me I should have been having a bottle of vodka in the street. But it does change the relationship somewhat between, the party going public and the police. And it's not that much of a different vibe, but it is different and it is noticeable. And it's one of the rare things that you get in New Orleans. You kind of get that in the Strip in Vegas.
Yeah, you
And
can drink on the Strip in Vegas.
right. There Lafayette lets you do it anywhere in town, but there's also some other exceptions. Like if you're in the Beale Street section of Memphis, there's like a 6-8 block section where you can walk around outside with the beer. But other than a few notable exceptions, it is one of the things that's different about New Orleans.
Yeah, I'm trying to. It's never really having to drink outside. I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't know. I guess I've drinking outside at outdoor. You know, whoa, that was a low flying plane. I'm thinking like tailgating. That doesn't count because like I've been to a bunch of tailgates. That's outside,
You're
right?
not walking from property to property, though.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're in one confined space, and yeah. All right. Well,
This is something where it would make sense if maybe we did a second line for Becky, but I don't think we're going to do all that. We have a pretty cool setup in the fact that one of the friends of the show and a faithful listener of us over the years happens to own a rock club downtown. And you need me to open that? Look at this.
she got a pickle jar she needs open. It is a pickle jar. Oh my God. I was just kidding. Wow.
That's funny.
Look at me.
He said you have a pickle jar. That's wild.
In fact, didn't need a pickle jar.
How did you do that? Okay.
It's a cliche. It's a trope.
I know, but it really just happened right in front of your face.
Yeah.
So so there's this place, the Vintage Rock Club in downtown New Orleans, and we'll probably have a place there. And that's a great place to have it because I have a huge history of that place, and Rebecca and me have a huge history with that place. So I stay tuned. That's one of the questions I get asked that I don't have answers for anymore. Like when was he found, or how'd she pass away? I have some of those answers. There's not going to be a funeral. There will be a memorial party, for lack of a better term. And whenever we nail it down, it'll probably be there, and I'll be sure to let everyone know to the best of my ability.
I'll come. I'll come down. That would totally
You
be
want to
something
New
I
Orleans?
can happen. Yeah, heck yeah, we can make that work.
Well, come on.
Absolutely. That would not be a stretch at all. So yeah, so keep maybe other people who are a part of the listening might want to come and join. I don't know how well you want to open it up to people, but let's be
Well,
honest.
like Bob right there. Bob knows.
Mhm.
Bob, did you know that Osterlin passed away? Had you seen that? Oh yeah. He said, "I'm glad I got to meet you, even if it was." Yeah, we met Bob like 3 or 4 times at least.
Da Bob. It's not da Boob. For some reason, I think it's da Bobo. No, it's da Bob. All right. Well, let's talk about a whole bunch of stuff. There was stuff that we could have talked about yesterday that was happening live, but it wasn't appropriate because we had bigger and more important things, more pressing things to get into than us just sitting there waxing poetic about current events. But last night during our show, and I told people today, you got any thoughts on the Monday Night Football game? I mean, when I really got into it, I knew it had happened before we signed on to the show. I knew there was something going on, and I wanted to get back to it. And as soon as we finished doing this, I immediately went in the other room and then started it back up from the beginning just to really watch the whole thing unfold.
Same thing here. For the 4 people who don't know, just in case, there was a guy who plays defense for the Buffalo Bills who did a tackle that didn't seem to be especially brutal or extraordinary. He seems to pop right up, and he's okay for about 4 seconds, and then he falls over, and he's not breathing. So they give him CPR. They bring an ambulance out, and after 9 hours of CPR, they take him to the hospital, and he's in critical condition, on a ventilator, clinging to life. The odds look worse than you would ever think for what just happened on the field. They called the game, rightfully so. The NFL just said, you know what, we'll deal with the rest of this game later. The important thing is the human being on the field. And
I've never seen anything like that before. I come to learn that there have been other instances. I have a few that I can cite as examples that have occurred specifically in football, but I've never seen anything like that before. And you texted me back almost immediately that wasn't even that scary of a hit. And it wasn't. And I was immediately reminded of Dale Earnhardt when Dale Earnhardt died, when he crashed into the wall. It was like a nothing crash. I mean, when you think about the auto wrecks that we have seen in NASCAR over the years, and then to see the one that actually killed Dale Earnhardt, you're like, he should just jump out of his car. That's not even, I mean, did the airbag even go off? You know, it didn't look like it was that bad of a crash that took Dale Earnhardt's life. And it was the very same sort of thing last night with Damar Hamlin, is who we're talking about, safety for the Buffalo Bills. He made a tackle on T. Higgins coming over the middle. T. Higgins turned upfield and drove right into him. And when I state it like that, it's not to say that, I'm blaming T. Higgins. They were playing football. This was a freak occurrence. Yeah. Damar Hamlin was immediately knocked to the ground. And then as the Monday Night Football cameras swung over to the sideline, because there was some pushing and shoving going on the sideline and the cameras wanted to capture that, we were suddenly swung back to where the play had just occurred, and we see that there's a Buffalo Bills player laying down. Now, the reason the camera swung away is because in the immediate aftermath of the hit, Damar Hamlin popped right back up. Everybody popped right back up. There was no reason for the camera to linger there when there was some action going on in the sideline. So when they swing back and I saw him laying there, I was like, I didn't see that happen. Initially, James, I didn't even know it was the guy who just made the tackle on T. Higgins. I thought it was a player on another part of the field that had maybe, was out of camera and we didn't see what happened. He got rolled up on or something. So they take a commercial break. Come back from the commercial break, James, and it wasn't, are you ready for some football? Let's return live now to, Cincinnati, where, there's a big buildup when they return from Monday Night Football from commercials, usually a big establishing shot of the city. Maybe it's a blimp shot or something. And then you hear Troy and you hear Joe Buck and they bring you back in from the commercial. That's not what happened. It went from a commercial to like a second of silence, no bumper or rejoin, and it was Lisa Salter on the sideline. That's when I knew. That's when I was like, whoa, okay, wait a second. Because the way you do that is Joe Buck and Troy Aikman bring you back from the commercial, and then they say, let's go down to the sideline and talk to Lisa Salter, and they throw it to her. That's how you do it. They went straight to Lisa Salter, who at that point, had a much more serious tone. And as she was describing what they were learning while we were in that commercial break was chilling. And that's when they began showing this. This is where we first saw this, James. I don't know. Well, I'm sure that you have seen it. It is the video of all of the Buffalo Bills players. While we were at commercial break, this is what the Buffalo Bills players were doing. And this is where I went, oh, shit. Is that guy dead? Why is this? Oh, wait, no, sorry. Don't want to do that. I mean, have you seen this footage of these players?
I don't think I've seen what you're about to show.
Hold on, let's see if this is it. Yeah, this is it. Okay. This is what they showed while Lisa Salters was speaking. This is how they came back. They said,
start up, ready to go, and to see one of their teammates go down the way he did, they have to.
I mean, look at these guys. I'm like, what happened? I didn't see anything really bad. Why is this? This is where I thought, holy shit. This is really serious. I've never seen that. Have you ever seen this?
Okay, yeah. I did see this stuff. I saw that.
But have you seen a reaction like this from players before?
Absolutely not. Nothing close to this.
What was going on in the middle of the field? We couldn't see.
Yeah. So I mean, at that point, I was like, huh. And then Joe and Troy start talking about they had to do CPR. CPR. What? What is going on here? What do you mean CPR? And then it's revealed that that's what the players saw. See, while we were away at commercials and while people are gathered around, the players are still on the field, just feet away from what's happening. The players saw him being CPR first and then, the shock pads. These players sat there and watched one of their teammates being shocked with the electrodes. Man, oh man. So your thoughts on the cancellation of the game? Because that seems to be
the right thing to do. I mean, who even gives a rip? When we know this guy's okay, then what are they going to do? Play the rest of the game? Just call it where it was?
How could they, after seeing how emotionally destroyed they were, how do they get back into that headspace to be a football player?
So they either call it where it was or call it a tie or just say this isn't going to be in the record books. You're just going to be, 16-game season or I don't know.
But you can't do that, though, because playoff seedings, and both of these teams are extremely good. Both of these teams are two of they're either number one or number two in the AFC, and that means a first-round bye, and that means all kinds of things. And this game was going to determine a whole lot. I mean, and now it's like, what are you going to do?
It doesn't count as a loss, and it doesn't count as a win. I don't know. It just do you get back together and do you play the rest of the game?
Well, here is one of the theories that I had heard. Now, this was canceled, shot down this afternoon. But one of the things that somebody, I think it was on ESPN, maybe it was FS1, had suggested was that both of these teams could play on Thursday night. Instead of playing Monday night, they would just move their game to Thursday night. And instead of playing Sunday, which both the Bengals and the Bills are scheduled to play on Sunday, you can't play a Thursday night game and then a Sunday game because there's a player's rule where there's got to be 3 or 4 full days. Anyway, but they could play Monday. So what they could have done was they could have moved this game, which was originally a Monday night game. They could have added it to Thursday night. So there'd be 2 Thursday night games, and they've done that before. And then their Sunday games, which were regularly scheduled to be noon starts on Sunday, would then just be moved. There'd be a second Monday night football game on Monday night. Or wait, no, there'd be 2 more Monday. I don't know, whatever. But
3 Monday night games total.
Yeah. The NFL shot that down this afternoon and said they said there was no. To their credit, I guess. I mean, they're playing the crisis management game and trying to figure out exactly. They're looking at every word and every sentence and making sure that it's not going to blow back on them. So they said, no, we're not even going to do that. We're not even thinking about that. We're not worried about that. We are mainly concerned about Damar Hamlin, which was, that's the right thing to say. And that's what they said. So, but there is a question out there of how are they going to make this up? Because this is, life goes on. That's an unfortunate thing to say. And we're all very concerned about Damar Hamlin. And, he's young. Hopefully, I don't know. I don't know where to go with this because I don't know what's wrong with him, right?
And it's okay that we don't know because we don't have enough information to make a full evaluation. We don't know what caused his death. So,
No, he didn't die. Don't. He didn't die. Not yet.
yeah, good point. Good point. If he, in fact, that's one of the big variables. If he dies, this is a totally different story than if he makes a full recovery. So what was it? So we can start ruling things out for the people who are like, oh, was he vaccinated? Well, look, everyone's vaccinated and they're not all dropping dead. And even if it has something to do with the vaccine, why did it happen in week 17? And maybe this is the first one and more people are going to start dropping dead in the future. Well, we don't know that yet. So let's go ahead and we can pretty much rule that out. That's like
wait a second.
really long shot.
Hold on. I get what you're saying, and I'm seeing some of that stupid. That's just stupid people. I mean, this is
Well, no, but let's go ahead and address everyone.
they
Whether
know,
we
they
think
know what
it's
happened. We know exactly what happened. I mean, the doctor chimed in. They know what happened. It was what's that called? Oh boy, it's very rare, but it occurs occasionally when you take blunt force trauma to the heart during a certain cycle of the heart. The heart cycles from around and around, and his moment of impact was at the exact moment where the electrons or whatever that power your heart were opening a vent, and when that impact happened, the vent fluttered and went into fibrillation, which caused him to have cardiac arrest. So I mean, they know what it was, and they can explain how it happened, and it is rare.
That's not satisfying enough. It can't just be like, well, he just got hit in the right spot at the right time. Because this is the first time this has happened. This hasn't happened before.
On a football field, it happens like the guy on CNN said today, this happens 100 times a day in car accidents. I mean, this is a real, regular, everyday injury.
Car accidents, but it
from blunt force trauma. It's just that, it has not happened in football, at least.
Right. And so that seems a little too easy simply because it's the first time this has happened in football. And if it is so easy as there's like this Kill Bill pressure point that if it gets hit at just the right time in the right cycle, the dude falls over almost dead, if not dead.
Bob brings up a great point. It has happened quite frequently in lacrosse and baseball with players getting hit with baseballs directly in their chests. So it has happened in other sport. I mean, this is a rare occurrence, but common enough that they go, oh yeah, this happens from time to time. We've seen this in car accidents. We've seen this with people who take falls from great heights. It's blunt force trauma to the heart.
I realize this is anecdotal, but I imagine most people have had the same experience as me. Is you've watched thousands of football games through the NFL, college, high school, all that, and you've never seen this before. So it just seems really unlikely that it really is so simple. Tell me he has some sort of underlying heart condition, or tell me he has some sort of I don't know, like hole in his aorta or like a only half functioning valve. Tell me it's not so easy that there is sort of the Kill Bill pressure point, and we've just been ragingly lucky that this hadn't happened through 3,000 observed games in our past.
Well, okay, so I have this pulled up. I did a little research on this. There have been players who have suffered these kinds of incidents in games. They didn't die and they didn't stop the games, but they were injured, taken out, and taken to the hospital. But maybe we just live in a different media era, right? For most famously, where is? Do you know what guy died? I thought last night, I was like, are we going to see a guy die in a football game for the first time? No, a dude died in a football game in his name is Hughes. Where is he?
Yeah, in like 1951 or something.
No, 1970. And 3 football players in the Super Bowl era have died in practice, not in games, but in practice. So I mean, my eyes are wide open now. I thought no players die. You know what I mean? I thought. By the way,
you hear about it like when you're growing up in Texas. There's some football team that it was sprinkling outside and the field goal got struck by lightning and some kid got zapped. And then you hear about there's like it seems to be one kid every year that has a heat stroke and collapses. And it's not necessarily the I don't know.
It's not just one kid a year, though. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It actually does happen. We just don't hear about it. All right, so this is Chuck Hughes. On October 24th, 1971, the Lions hosted the Chicago Bears at Tiger Stadium. Late in the fourth quarter, with Detroit trailing 28-23, the Lions were driving into Chicago territory, and Hughes, who entered the game as an injury replacement, caught a pass from quarterback Greg Landry for 32 yards and a first down at the Bears' 37-yard line, where he was met by Chicago Bears safety in a collision. Okay. 3 plays later, Landry threw a pass that tight end Charles Sanders dropped near the end zone. Hughes, a decoy on the play, began running back to the huddle with 1:02 showing on the clock. He then suddenly dropped to the turf, clutching his chest. This guy had the exact same thing as the other guy, except it took him 1:02 before his heart finally stopped and dropped him. Now, with the case of DeMar, we saw it. I mean, what was it, 3 seconds? I mean, he like stood
All right.
up. It was okay for a minute. So this guy, Ed Hughes, he was rushed to the hospital. He died. He died like on the way to the hospital. And this was 1972. Now that seems like a long time ago, but that's the Super Bowl era. That is considered the modern times of football. Here's another one. Well, these were all. Hold on, where are the ones that I have? Some of these are interesting. The list is really, it's a list of football players, NFL players who have died in season. So some of them list, they died because one guy broke his neck in practice back in 2004. Corey Stringer in 2001. He died of heat stroke, cardiac arrest on the practice field of Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, that was 2000.
Well, it's not really that distant in some ways because Jason Witten took a hit and he tore his spleen or something.
Who?
Jason Witten. He had missed it. He had the one time he missed games. He like ripped his pancreas or something, and it was kind of like one of these weird blunt force trauma, just where his organs, muscles strained just right while he was twisting, and he missed a few games for that. And that's something that if he had played while his spleen was torn, he could have had a fatal re-injury of that organ. I remember that.
Yeah. There's been some really serious messed up injuries. Like I remember
we're used to Len Bias. We're used to some guy who goes out there and drops dead and everybody like, oh, it's a tragedy. And then you find out he's been banging coke or whatever.
Well, no, that's Len Bias, but we're not used to and I can't think of his name, the Loyola Marymount, Hank Gathers. Like, don't get Len Bias and Hank Gathers confused. Len Bias was, he did a whole bunch of cocaine. His heart got inflamed. He dropped dead from doing too much cocaine. Hank Gathers had a heart attack in the middle of a college basketball game. I mean, he was a perfectly healthy, world-class athlete who was going to be a high draft pick in the NBA. Yeah, that was a scary one. I remember that video of just Hank Gathers walking back to the bench and then his legs get all noodly and he drops. Oh my God. So on some of these lists here, some of these people there were some really interesting ways that some NFL players have passed away during the season. This is only a list of like teams that had to like honor their fallen player. Do you remember a guy by the name of, hold on, where is it? Because this is Jovan Belcher. Does that name sound familiar to you?
It does not.
2012. He was a wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. And here, let me tell you about what he did, how he died. This may come back to you once I start reading the details, because this was a crazy one. By late 2012, Belcher was living with his girlfriend, Cassandra Perkins, and their 3-month-old baby, Zoe, in Kansas City while he played with the Chiefs. Belcher and Perkins were introduced through Chiefs running back Jamal Charles, whose wife was the first cousin of Perkins. Friends stated that the couple argued frequently, including after Perkins, the girl, returned home at 1 a.m. from a Trey Songz concert at the Midland Theater on the night of November 30th. After an argument, Perkins, the woman, then went to the Power and Lights District. That's the big party top part of Kansas City. She went to the Power and Lights District, an entertainment area by the Midland and T-Mobile centers in downtown Kansas City. Belcher was also in the Power and Light District with a different woman. After losing the woman in the crowd, Belcher drove to her apartment, but she was not home at the time. The police found him there at 2:50 a.m. after receiving a 911 call about a suspicious person in a car parked on Armour Boulevard. He told the police that he was waiting for his girlfriend and forgot the code to her apartment. The police discussed the temporary tags on his Bentley. He's driving a Bentley, and urged him to go inside the building, saying they were trying to cut him a break here. Okay, so he goes inside the building. He ends up staying the night. At 6 a.m., he returns home. Remember, he was fighting with his girlfriend, Perkins, right? He's fighting with her. So she went to a concert. She came home at 1 a.m. They had a big fight. She went out and partied. He went out and partied. Now it's 6 a.m. He's rolling back up into the crib. She's there. they're still fighting. Belcher returned home at 6:30 a.m. and had another argument with Perkins. In the ensuing argument, Belcher drew a handgun and fatally shot Perkins in front of his mother, Cheryl Shepard. The police arrived at the house at around 7:50 a.m. following a call from his mother, who had recently moved there from West Babylon, New York, to help them care for their daughter, Zoe. After murdering Perkins, Belcher drove his 2007 Bentley Continental GT about 5 miles to the parking lot at the Chiefs practice facility next to Arrowhead Stadium. He stepped out of the car with a gun pointed to his head when he encountered Chiefs general manager Scott Pioli. Belcher told Pioli that he had just murdered his girlfriend and thanked him, and asked Pioli. All right. Belcher told Pioli that he had just murdered his girlfriend and thanked him before asking for Pioli and Chiefs owner Clark Hunt to take care of his daughter. Pioli tried to persuade Belcher to drop the gun. Then Chiefs head coach Romeo Crennel, along with linebackers coach Gary Gibbs, arrived and joined the effort. The police were dispatched to the scene. As the sound of sirens approached, Belcher told the men that he had to kill himself and that he couldn't be here any longer. He then knelt down by a car, made a sign of the cross, and shot himself in the head in front of Romeo Crennel, in front of Scott Pioli and Romeo Crennel. I mean, these are two very big names in the world of NFL front office management. Do you remember that story?
Oh, I do now. I just didn't remember his name.
Oh my God, that was a big. And then Jovan Belcher. I'm going through this list and I'm like, that's right. I forgot about Jovan Belcher and what he did. Then there's Jeff Ulm. Jeff Ulm in 1993. The reason I mentioned Jeff Ulm is because I grew up with Jeff Ulm. Jeff Ulm was a year older than me. We played Pioneer football together. He went to different high schools, but we were both from Orland Park, Illinois. Jeff Ulm was always the big, giant, really good football playing kid who the whole town was like, he's going places. And he did. Got drafted by the Houston Oilers. This was in 93. He wasn't adjusting well his rookie year down there, and he invited his friend Sean Lynch, another guy I knew. Sean and Jeff were best friends. Sean Lynch comes down. They go out for a night on the town in Houston. They get drunk. They get into a car accident while they're drunk. Sean Lynch is thrown from the car down a 30-foot embankment, landing on the roadway below. He's dead. Jeff Ulm, the Houston Oilers dude, goes to the embankment, looks, sees that he's just killed his friend, walks to his car trunk, opens it out, pulls out a shotgun, blows his head off right there in the middle of the road. 2 days before a game. I mean,
I don't remember that one. Jesus.
This was 1993. So you were probably pretty young, but yeah, it happened right there in Houston. Now I remember that one because I grew up with Jeff Ulm. He was sort of like a hometown hero. We were all like, oh man, that is not good. And then we did Chuck Hughes, we did Jovan Belcher, Jeff Ulm. Anyway, I guess the reason I was looking at these is because in all of these instances, except for in 1971 with Chuck Hughes, there was a lot of league discussion about canceling the games, but the games went on. And both of these were, Jovan Belcher was the day before a game, and Jeff Ulm was on the Friday night before a game. So it was...
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so just as early as 93 or in 2012, at least the NBA was thinking about canceling the games, but then because of the absence of social media criticism, they decided to go ahead and just play the games anyway, because money.
Because you can go complain out your window and no one's going to hear you.
Exactly, and I really do think that that's the reason that they continued the game, or that they didn't continue the game. I think that if there was no fear of society at large having this outrage that they would think to play the game, they would have played the game. They would have totally. I think they would have. I think they totally would have. Did I ask you about the Super Bowl?
No, you didn't ask me about the Super Bowl.
I just talked to Emil about this about, I don't know, half hour ago before we signed. If this had happened during the Super Bowl in the first quarter, do they cancel the Super Bowl?
No.
Right? I don't think so either. I don't think there's any way in hell they cancel a Super Bowl. They have sold out at record-breaking ad rates all of the commercials. They're playing that damn game. Now they might delay it, right? I could see them delaying it. But yeah, that's so, give the NFL credit, but I'm still a little bit suspicious if they had made that call if it was a Super Bowl.
It's not 100% about the humanity, but the humanity issue does outweigh a regular season game, but not the Super Bowl.
Not the Super Bowl. No, and this was a really important regular season game. So,
Bro, the goddamn lights went out on the Super Bowl in New Orleans, and they were like, "We're still playing. Y'all get these lights back on. We're going to plug in a bunch of lamps if we have to, but this game's not going to stop." Remember when?
Yeah, I do remember that. But Leslie's got a good question. You see what Leslie asks right there? This is here. Here's what she said. Leslie said, "Do you really think that they care about him? I don't." And I think she's talking about the NFL. I don't particularly think that the people in the top offices of the NFL really, from a humanistic standpoint, care. I mean, I think they're concerned. I think they're hoping that he gets better, but I don't think anybody's crying. I think they're more bummed out about now they got to do a whole bunch of math to figure out what
Well,
no
it's
contests
also
do to a playoff map. They
Leslie. They not to pick on you, but they probably care more than you do. They probably care more than the average person who's making that criticism. Do you really care about the well-being of football players, and how much are you willing to disrupt your life for the well-being of Damar Hamlin? I mean,
Damar Hamlin,
yeah.
yeah.
Of course, look, human beings are human beings, and we all have, unless we're psychopaths or sociopaths, a general human connection. And of course, non-psychopathic humans care about the well-being of Damar Hamlin and realize a human being is worth more than a football game and
A little bit.
all that. But
Although not actually. Not actually. I'm sorry. You can say that, and that sounds like the right thing to say, but you can actually quantify in dollars what a Monday Night Football game is worth. And I'm sorry, I don't think one human body is if we're just going to be monetary about it. What do they say? The human body is worth like $350 or something in parts. There was some. Have you ever heard that? There's like some estimate that they say what each body.
I always like this discussion because I bristle at the idea that a human body has infinite value, or a human life has infinite value. Oh, well, human life is priceless. No, it's not. That's a ridiculous thing to say. And it's quite easily disproven. But we go through this quite often, like we just went through the World Cup where something like 300 migrant workers died building the stadiums. And, no one really says, well, they care about a game more than human beings. It's like, well, the Brooklyn Bridge, there was like 19 people died building that. They're just like, some of them are entombed in the cement. Human death and suffering is unfortunately kind of just a part of this fallible world that we live in. And yes, it can be taken too far where people disregard human life too much, but it's not infinite. The value of a life is not infinite.
It's almost like we get lost in numbers. Like, I'll put it to you this way. If we were to see a situation where 10 people were killed, we might be horrified and truly shook and moved by it. We see a situation where 10,000 people are killed, and we might just be like, too big of a number. You know what I mean? Like, the number, they don't compute. It's like, that's not, as a human being, 1-to-1, we see 10 people, we can understand it. 10,000, you know what I'm saying? I don't even know what I'm saying, really. But
no, I know what you're saying.
The bigger the number, the more easily dismissible it is to us, because we can't really. That's too much of a number for us to contemplate.
Yeah, this is a very humanized version of it. We're talking about one individual, Damar Hamlin. We're not talking about a statistic right now. We're talking about someone's brother, someone's son, someone's husband, and so that makes it real hard to talk about. But if we are going to endeavor in the sport of football with human beings that have imperfect, flawed bodies, physiologies, then you're necessarily going to come across some of these horrible tragedies. It's just like, if NASCAR is going to exist, every once in a while, someone's going to have to die in one of these car wrecks, or we're just not going to have football or NASCAR, or we'll just nerf our whole life and we'll wrap ourselves in bubble wrap and we'll run around. And the next time anyone needs to storm the beaches of Normandy, we'll just let the bad guys win. How about that?
I don't know that I can say the same for football, but certainly in the case of NASCAR, the entire reason that sport is popular is because you are constantly on the precipice of somebody dying. It's a sport that people watch because it's dangerous. It's not a safe thing that these drivers are doing on a NASCAR track. We are watching it because, oh my goodness, what if that's the draw? I don't know that you can say the same for football. necessarily. Maybe football with the big hits and stuff like that, but we don't necessarily think that football is something we're going to tune into and somebody might die. We can't say that for NASCAR or for Formula One, which I love, or even MMA, really, if you've seen some of the brutal injuries I've seen in that sport. All right. Anyway, hey, speaking of that sport, did you see the Dana White story? Did you following that?
I did not.
Oh, you didn't see the Dana White story? Okay, well, I guess I got to show you the Dana White story then. It's good. It's another one that doesn't require any kind of sound, because there is no sound. Dana White and his wife were in Mexico over New Year's Eve. They went to a club. They had a good time.
Dana White is he the founder or just the CEO of the UFC?
Dana White is a president. It was his idea. He went to the Fertitta brothers, who were his buddies, and they were casino owners, and they started a league. And what was he? I guess he would be like the founder. Yeah, maybe president. He was president. He wasn't chairman. That was one of the Fertittas. But
he made a dump truck full of money in this endeavor, and he is the leading face, the leader. He is the George Washington of mixed martial arts,
the Abner Doubleday, if you will. And you just used the proper word, endeavor. You said in this endeavor, because about 5 years ago, the UFC sold Zuffa, who were the Fertitta brothers. Zuffa sold the UFC to Endeavor, the company, for $2.5 billion. So Dana White is no longer this untouchable guy. Dana White is an employee of Endeavor, which has ties to Disney, has ties to, they're basically a major Hollywood talent representation agency. That's what Endeavor is. And Endeavor now owns outright the UFC, and Dana White works for Endeavor for now, because that is now going to be tested with this latest Dana White story. Dana White did take a huge payoff. I think he probably made about $500 million, some ridiculous amount of money for his stake of the UFC when it sold. And he is still the president of the UFC and the face of the sport. But again, remember, he works for somebody now. So this is Dana and his wife. They went to a club in Mexico. This was on New Year's Eve. Is it sharing? Can you see it?
We can do the full screen thing, though.
All right, there you go. Okay, so there you see Dana, and that's his wife right there. This is his wife. They seem to be bickering about something, James, and it's Dana White. So people got their phones out. He thinks he's safely in the VIP section, probably got a little bit of buzz going, and this is what happens. Oh, yeah. Did you see that, James?
I did.
Oh, okay. And then she goes down, and now he is pushing on her, and she fell to the ground, and he apparently stomped at her.
I saw her slap him first, right there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She slaps him first. Yeah. And then he slaps her right back. Doesn't matter. She ain't Dana White, and she's the woman in this scenario. So you tell me if Endeavor is going to want to be in business with this guy. He's in a little bit of trouble. This is that
was a love tap. It wasn't even a real slap. I mean, if he wanted to, he could knock her head clean off her shoulder.
You do see her now on the ground, and you do see him stomping on her. Just to be clear, for the love slap that you just go ahead, defend the guy that nobody in the world is defending right now. Go ahead. Who are you? Go ahead.
Look, that's bad.
Yes. Oh, really? Going out on a limb there, James? Bad?
I felt that it was somewhat measured, though. Excuse me for recognizing that this wasn't some guy who was in a barbaric, animalistic rage. He got slapped in the face, and he just returned favor.
And you think that's okay? Let's get into this. You think that's okay?
No, damn it! I didn't say it was okay. I'm
justifying it. You're saying you are justifying, and so is DeBob, who says that initially it was self-defense. It's not self-defense. There is nothing masculine about beating up a woman. There's nothing you should be able to kick every woman that you're with's ass. Okay, you should. And if you can't, then be on your best behavior. And the knowledge that you are bigger, stronger, you have more dense bones or whatever it is, that is supposed to keep us in this place where, yeah, you slapped me.
Well, and look, if the girl wants to yell at you and say very horrible things and embarrass you and stuff, then you can respond with equally insulting or whatever you want to try verbally. And
Yeah.
if she wants to escalate it to where she's putting hands on you and slapping you in the face, well, then she's going to have to deal with the consequences of escalating it into a physical altercation. Now, instead of picking her up and throwing her 40 feet into the air like he could, or instead of closing his fist and punching her like he was really trying to hurt her, this is kind of it's almost like when your dog nips at you and you just pop it in the nose, be like, excuse me, we don't do that around here, and you do not want to escalate this. Now, I don't know about the stomping thing. I don't know, was she kicking him and he was just like
I
putting
don't
his
know. She fell to the ground.
we don't
She
know.
fell to the ground.
And if he stomped on her, that's horrible and that's bad. But this isn't some guy who was out of control in a rage that looks like some sort of domestic abuser. This looks like a guy who doesn't take any crap from anyone. And if a chick's going to come up and slap him in the face and he slaps
his wife for 30 years,
I wouldn't do that to my wife. I would never in a million years.
I am interested in your justification of why some men might feel compelled to do it.
It's an explanation on why I am not just wildly outraged or think this guy should be ostracized from polite society and lose his job or whatever the hell.
Oh, I do, especially since he's the guy who famously said to all the UFC fighters that if you hit a woman, you can never come back from that. That's Dana White speaking to whole bunch of his fighters who were up on domestic abuse things. He would fire them from the league. They would get kicked out. And because
I'm not sure if this counts as hitting a woman. Does she get charged with assault?
Well, it's Mexico. And yeah, possibly. I suppose you could. I suppose that if that happened in America, charge her with assault.
Right,
but you don't get to retaliate, is my whole point.
You do.
No, you do not. No, you do not, James. You are a fucking cunt if you hit a woman because she slapped you. You can't take getting slapped by a woman. What a fucking bitch. No, I'm not bitter. I hear this all
that's not what I said. I didn't think you were bitter.
who are fucking pussies.
No,
Men you hit me, I'm going to hit you back. Fuck you, you pussy. It's more masculine to be able to subdue all of that and just look at them and walk away. That's what a real man can do. Why? Because we're bigger, we're stronger, and we can probably kick their ass. So we don't. And I didn't mean to call you a cunt. I just got a little bit.
No, that's all right. That's all right. And listen, I think we agree more than you're giving me credit for. You and I would react the same to this. But there is a moral justification for if a woman escalates this to something physical and he reacts with something physical. He did not initiate the use of force. He is not the one who brought the slapping.
You don't get to retaliate when a woman slaps you. You just
you
don't.
Do if it's a restrained measure, open hand slap to the face. Because think about it.
Not and be a respectable, true man. That is not what a man does. A man walks away. A man goes, "You're a fucking bitch," and walks away. Doesn't retaliate. You know why? Because his ego can handle it. His ego can go, "Oh shit, I just got hit by a bitch. I am walking away because I am about to put her head through the wall." That's what a man does. A man justifies none of this the way you seem to be doing.
You've never seen the videos where some woman is slapping on a guy and finally he turns around and slaps her back and you feel, hey, that was justified.
No, yes, I have seen those videos, and no, it's never justified. You don't hit a woman back. You walk away.
So morally speaking, a guy is compelled to accept any level of violence from a woman without retaliating.
No, she's got a weapon. That's a totally different thing. If there's a weapon that could absolutely injure you, then yeah, you have a right to defend your life. But a girl slapping you and you having your ego bruised because a woman slapped you and now you must show that you're the dominant ape in the cage, that's bullshit. That's gay. Now, if she's got a knife and she wants to fucking kill you with the knife, yeah, knock her the fuck out. Because
so as long as she's unarmed, a guy has to accept any level of physical violence from a woman as long as she's unarmed.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I think that's an unreasonable moral boundary to set.
That a man in civilized society, if slapped by a woman or punched by his girlfriend or whatever, you think it's unreasonable to expect in a civilized society that man to just walk away from it?
I don't think it's unreasonable. In fact, I myself would walk away from it.
Easily. I'd laugh. I have been in that position. I have been hit by girls and I've laughed and I've walked away. Now, I've been furious, but you got to walk away.
But listen, if we want true egalitarian equality, then the rule should be the same on if a guy came up and slapped you in the face, then you can slap him back. And if a girl wants to go into the arena of guys and dismiss the the rules of there's not supposed to be violence between the your spouse or whatever, and if she initiates the use of force, if a guy in a measured response, albeit violent, albeit something I wouldn't do, albeit something I don't morally, well, I don't want to say morally approve, I wouldn't behave in the same way. If he slaps her back in the face, she's the one who started it. She started it. And look, there needs to be more of these Dana White examples, or some of these chicks need to have an incentive to not just run around and think they can randomly slap any guy that offends them. But she's acting barbaric.
Why is that an ego thing with you, where you must respond if a woman slaps you? How dare you?
Have that. I don't have that ego thing.
No, you don't. Let's establish that. You don't. You are playing devil's advocate to a degree. You're making an argument for people who may have that thing, right? That's what you're doing. You're making an argument for guys who may have that thing, where they can't walk away, where after being slapped 10 times by a woman, they then pound her in the face once. You're saying you can see how that's justifiable. You wouldn't do it because that's not who you are. We've established that. But you are making an argument, I would hope devil's advocacy. You were making an argument that you could see how some guys might justify it.
Let me try and find a metaphor, because this is something I run into with my libertarian sensibilities all the time. Like, I disagree with a lot of behaviors that I don't think should be illegal, or even are necessarily wrong. That's just not the ethos I choose to live my life by, and it doesn't make me any morally superior or inferior to people who go different. So one of the easy ones is marriage, right? And just to delineate between something is morally wrong and something should be illegal, or some guy should be condemned for the rest of his life. Marriage is a great example. Marriage is a fantastic example, because most people agree that you shouldn't cheat on your spouse, right? Everyone agrees that's morally wrong if you're running around behind your spouse's back. And you're not
anything. I'm not gonna sign off on that, but yes, I will understand. I will grant you that in a boilerplate relationship, yes, that's
right. But almost nobody thinks that should be illegal. Like, you should go to prison if you commit adultery, right? So it's the same thing. Everyone admits that that's wrong, but it shouldn't be illegal. It's something that you wouldn't do, and you wouldn't want it to happen to your daughter. But you don't
in a fair.
Right. Okay. And then there's also the spot where, okay, well, what if one of the spouses is cheating, and the other spouse finds out about it and says, "Could you just please stop cheating on me?" And they keep cheating. And then what if the non-cheating spouse finally decides to have an affair? Well, they are still in the wrong. And I'm not saying it's justifiable, and I'm not saying it's something I would do, but it's almost in this situation, since the other person has gone so far in the direction and started this mess, that it's somewhat, on some level, a justifiable response, albeit wrong and immoral in its own right, an understandable and even expected response.
I don't love that analogy for any number of reasons, but I don't want to get into this anymore. I think you have stated your case. I've stated my case. I expect Dana White to be let go from Endeavor UFC within the next couple of days. We'll see. I don't think as he said famously to John Bones Jones, you never come back from hitting a woman. He said that. He's actually famous for saying that. And here's the other crazy thing about this. Do you know that he's got a new project that he's working on that he's sunk like $100 million into? He's trying to make professional slap boxing a real sport. Dana White slap boxing is a real thing. Go to YouTube, look it up. There's like $100 million.
Why didn't you say this is the beginning? This is the perfect publicity stunt to roll open his new league, right?
What a lot of people said, although other people were like, well, this is how you kill off that league.
Not only am I a president for the Hair Club for Men.
Also, let's go out with this, because I did want to get to this last story before we end today. Jeremy Renner. We saw a press conference today for Jeremy Renner. He's did you see any of the press conference? They didn't tell us really anything other than, of course, Jeremy Renner, Hawkeye from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Hurt Locker, Academy Award nominated actor. I believe he played Jason Bourne in a couple of movies. I still don't know if he lost his legs or what is going on with him. The sheriff there in Lake Tahoe held a press conference today. Jeremy Renner on Sunday afternoon was run over by his snowplow. Something called a piston something. I don't know. It's James. This is here. Let me show you the snowplow. You just this damn thing. Jeremy Renner lives on this beautiful property in the mountains on Lake Tahoe. He's got a few neighbors, rich people stuff. They got 3 feet of snow on New Year's Eve, so he went out there. Yeah, and these aren't county roads, so they don't get plowed. So all the people who live up there, they have these elaborate snow removal machines. Jeremy Renner has basically what is a farm combine that is it's got the track like tank, like tank wheels, the tracks. Yeah, it's got like giant treads. It is massive. It is a gigantic, very, very cool. And he's got it and he enjoys it, right? He's got 3 feet of snow. He's going to take it out. He's like, I got it. I'll get all the neighbors' driveways and all that kind of stuff. So on Sunday morning, New Year's Day, he was coming back with his nephew in their car, and their car got stuck. They got stuck at the end of their driveway. So Jeremy Renner jumped out of the car and he ran up and he went and got the Bearcat or the Snowcat or whatever the hell they're calling it. It's something cool. It's like a piston. Hold on.
Oh, a piston Honda.
No, is that a thing?
That was one of the fighters in Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Hold on. Piston Bull. That's it. Piston Bull Snowcat. All right.
Here,
here, where do you see this thing? Because really, you need to see it.
I haven't seen like 3 foot of snow in my entire life, cumulative.
Piston Bully. There you go. Okay, so that's what this thing is called. So this is what Jeremy Renner was out there playing with.
Oh wait, hey, did Leslie leave? She says goodnight all. Hey guys, go look at Leslie's page. Turns out she's kind of hot, and I feel like that would irritate her if all the guys started telling her she's hot.
Leave Leslie alone. She's an old friend.
Love that. I'm not just pretty face.
She's 7 She's a 7-foot blonde. She's a beautiful woman. Yeah, that's his piston bully. That is his snowplow. Now, when we say
this is what we talk about, you know how when we talk about like when rich people say more money, more problems or whatever. No, I'll take more problems if I can have one of these.
Well, James, let me tell you about the problems that this particular toy brought, because there's some pretty big problems for Jeremy Renner. So the car gets stuck. He and his nephew are in the car. He jumps out. He runs up the driveway. He goes and gets this bad boy out of the driveway or wherever the hell they keep it. He comes down. He plows everybody out. He pulls up next to the car that was his car that they got stuck in, a Suburban, they said, an SUV. And he opens the door of the piston bully, which is what this is called, and he yells back at the car, kind of to say, "Hey, can you get out now?" Like that kind of thing. Like, "Hey, I can't hear you over all this noise, but can you get out?" And he's yelling down to the car that's down below him. And the nephew gets out of the car. "What? I can't hear you." So he gets out of the cab. He thinks the thing is in park. And when you get out of the cab, you have to stand on these treads. See the treads in the picture? Yeah. So he gets out of the cab and he's standing on the tread and the thing starts to move. It moves forward. He got sucked under the front of this thing, this tread here, right here. See this area right here? Yeah. So he's standing right here. It started to move and boom, he got stuck under and the thing ran him over. He was airlifted on Sunday to a hospital there in Lake Tahoe. He had serious, he's in critical condition, stable but critical condition, serious injuries to his, they said from the neck down. So he had upper chest injuries, like serious injuries to his chest, and then really bad injuries to his legs. Here, let me read you what they said here. By the way, the weight of this thing, here, they give you the weight in this story.
Oh my God. They must have put him in the ambulance with a big fucking spatula.
It's like they scooped him up with a snow shovel, man. 14,330 pounds is what that thing rolled over him. That rolled over his, basically his entire torso. Local authorities are sharing details.
1,000 pounds?
Probably, yeah. Local authorities are sharing details from Jeremy Renner's tragic accident that happened while clearing snow on New Year's Day. Washoe County Sheriff Darren Ballum said in a press conference Tuesday that Renner, 51, was helping a family member who was stuck in a vehicle out. An estimated 3 feet of snowfall had fallen the night before. Mr. Renner went to retrieve his piston bully an extremely large piece of snow removal equipment weighing at least 14,300 pounds in an effort to get his vehicle moving again. After successfully towing his personal vehicle from its stuck location, Mr. Renner got out of his piston bully to speak to his family members who were in the car. At this point, it is observed that the piston bully started to roll. In an effort to stop the rolling piston bully, Mr. Renner attempted to get back into the driver's seat but fell backwards under the treads. Oh my God. Oh my God, James. I mean, he's alive. And not only is he alive, James, but he posted to his Instagram today. And let me see if maybe can we find that? I don't even know if I have an Instagram.
Yeah, I saw the picture and like the left side or the one side of his face is busted up, and he looked kind of swollen, but he didn't look like he just got ran over by what was that, a 7-ton tank?
Yeah, I can't find the picture. I don't know how I'm going to find it. Okay, somehow. Anyway, yeah, he basically sent out an Insta message with him in the. He looked like he'd been in a fight. he looked like hell. Where he just said, he said, "Hey, I'm okay." He was, "I can't. Somebody else is tweeting this for me right now because I'm pretty effed up," which is understandable. Now, the police, the sheriff there, they said, and I thought this was interesting the way they said it. They said that they expect him to make a full and complete recovery. Now, when you say full and complete recovery, that means that there is going to be no loss of limbs. That means that you should be fully recovered the way you were. That's full and complete.
That means no wheelchair, right?
Right. Full and complete means he will be back to normal. He will have 2 legs, 2 arms, which is a really big concern because there's been talk for the last 48 hours about how he lost both of his legs. Like there was. So anyway, that's good news out of the Jeremy Renner thing. Look, it's good news out of 2 big celebrities who have made big news in the last couple of months. Jay Leno, that car accident, his car exploded and he got burnt over 90% of his body. A week later, Jay Leno's doing stand-up gigs, right? I mean, so good. Thank God.
Not because he needs the money.
No, Jeremy Renner, hopefully, same thing for him. Hopefully he's going to be okay. But man, what a scary. You know what it reminded me of? That Anton Chekhov kid, or not Chekhov, he played Chekhov in the Star Trek reboot. Remember the new kid, Anton?
Oh, yeah. He's in a few movies. Anyway, what about him? What did he do?
Well, the way he died, he's been dead for like 8 years now. Don't you remember what happened to him? He died like right after Star Trek came out. Yeah, he was in a lot of movies and he was becoming a big movie star. He was pulling into his house and there's an electric gate at his house and he was in a Jeep Grand Cherokee and he put the Jeep Grand Cherokee in park and walked to his gate to get his mail. The Jeep Grand Cherokee slid out of park and pinned him between the Jeep Grand Cherokee and a cement wall where he died of blunt force trauma and asphyxiation. He was smashed to death between his mailbox and his Jeep Grand Cherokee. Oh,
that is wild.
I mean, my God. And that was just like, what, 2016? Something like that happened? I got a lot of spooky stories today. A lot of like dark theme stories. And I called you a cunt, and I feel bad for that. I sometimes I enjoy that we're on a stream. Sometimes I like to.
Oh, no offense. I get called worse.
Yeah. All right. What else is new? We're done, right?
Yeah. Dude, I tried to have our friend on to talk about the Idaho murder situation, but someone is unreachable. One of the chaotic, talented people in this world.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about that, so we'll have to get her on. And maybe at some point this week. All right, he's gone. There he goes. You don't hit women. That always just gets me going, man. I don't give a shit. What kind of bitch are you? Your girlfriend slapped you and your ego couldn't take it, so you had to slap her back because nobody slaps me. Your girlfriend slaps you, go, oh, God. Fuck. Gotta walk away from this and never talk to her again. That's basically how you handle it. Sorry, I got no respect for any guy that hits a woman for any reason. But she hit him like 10 times. Yeah, well, why did he let her hit him 10 times? Why didn't he just leave? Why didn't he get the fuck out of there? Because I'm running like a pussy. Oh, that's your ego talking. See, you are a pussy because your ego owns you, you little bitch. All right, don't hit women. Let's just keep it like that. All right, love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow at noon for High Noon. Bye.